Hi, this is Tina Powell, host of In the Suite, where I sit down with top women leaders and some of the biggest names in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Together, we'll discover some of their best secrets and top strategies to grow a great business, build a strong brand, and lead teams in the 21st century. I hope you'll enjoy hearing their amazing personal stories of triumph, trepidation, and transformation in hopes of becoming better leaders ourselves. The time for you to lead is now, and you're in the suite. Sheryl O'Connor's experience in the financial services industry is anything but typical. Having built large enterprise teams across global business and technology sectors and smaller, more agile teams at startups, you can now add the word founder to her incredible list of accomplishments. And like other SaaS founders, the genesis for her product called IncomeConductor emerged not from the lens of her office, but rather through the looking glass at home, her parents' home to be exact. Sheryl's dad, a retired engineer with a full pension, developed neuropathy and dementia in his latter years before passing away in 2014. Her parents were childhood sweethearts who met in kindergarten. And while they both had pensions and full medical benefits, there was another part of retirement, even more stressful, Sheryl wanted to solve for. In 2014, Sheryl spearheaded the development of a cloud-based proprietary SaaS product called IncomeConductor with her co-founders Phil Lubinsky and Tom O'Connor at WealthConductor. WealthConductor's revolutionary retirement income platform, IncomeConductor, utilizes a time-segmented distribution strategy and allows financial advisors and financial advisory firms the software to create a customized plan based on the income needs of the clients, because no two retirements are exactly the same. Before WealthConductor, Sheryl founded an SEC-registered investment management firm with two other principals and grew it from 0 AUM to over 900 million AUM, where she also discovered processes and procedures to support a white glove turnkey asset management program that serviced 1,500 individual wealth accounts and ERISA retirement plans. And one of the many gifts that you'll discover about Sheryl in this episode is seeing how she took the culmination of her skills in technology and finance and used it to serve and help others. A lot of us are dealing with retirement planning and hoping it will help us lead our best life. It's a story I think many women can relate to in the suite. So Sheryl O'Connor, welcome to In the Suite. It's great to see you here today. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is going to be a great, great discussion.
Well, thank you for having me, Tina. It's always a treat talking to you.
I think what's going to make this episode intriguing for our listening audience today, and that is the depth and breadth and wealth of experience that you bring to the table and that you're going to bring to the discussion specifically around women in retirement planning. I'm so excited that we're going to have it. I think it's so necessary right now. And you bring such a unique angle. And you have spent time at numerous companies, including MassMutual as an enterprise project management consultant. You've been at the Hartford. You founded an SEC RIA. You're principal at 3D Asset Management. And you've co-founded WealthConductor, which is a SaaS product for RIAs that I think a lot of you will find very intriguing. Where do we start, Sheryl?
I don't know, maybe with the retirement story and how I got involved in that aspect of the business.
Yeah, I really love it. And that's going to ladder into our discussion about WealthConductor and your SaaS product, SaaS standing for Software as a Service, IncomeConductor. So give us a little bit of that origin story. How did you get here in retirement planning and financial services?
Yeah, so just like everybody, when they're going through their career, they're not thinking too much about retirement. It's way off in the distance. But actually, two things kind of inspired me to found this company. First of all, you mentioned that I was involved with an asset management firm, which I actually started in 2006 with my husband and a partner. And they were the investment specialists, the sales specialist. My main focus at the firm was to build what's called a turnkey asset management platform. It's referred to in the industry as a TAMP, T-A-M-P. And that allowed advisors to outsource their back office. So they were outsourcing their portfolio management to our firm, but then they were also saying, it could be a lot more efficient if you guys took care of all of the trading and reporting and account maintenance and, worried about all of that business that usually goes on in the back office. So that's what I was doing. I was building up a team, and I got to know all the advisors that were using the platform very well, as well as their clients who would call us directly at times to ask questions about, to send them a report or, how their account was doing. So it was a lot of fun getting to know all these advisors and clients. But then 2 years later, when 2008 hit, and the big crash in the market came tumbling down, we were managing thousands of accounts for retirees with advisors who were using a specific type of income distribution strategy called time segmentation. And it had been developed by Phil Lubinsky, who is a certified financial planner and was nationally recognized as a retirement income expert. He lives out in Denver. What I noticed, which was incredibly impressive, was that none of these clients touched their accounts.
Wow.
Through 2008, 2009, when the market bottomed out. And after that, they stayed in the market. And we didn't receive any panicky phone calls. We didn't have to talk anybody off of bridges. That was so impressive to me that, there were all these stories, the headlines out there, I'm sure you remember them, about people's 401ks losing 50% of their value. And a lot of people, not just in the US, but around the world, liquidated their investments. They went to cash in, the worst time, which is now come to be known as the Great Recession.
Right.
So, I really wanted to learn what was the secret that Phil and these other advisors had to manage their clients, fears so well and keep them in the market so they would ride through and they wouldn't lock in their losses. Because, it's one thing to lose money in the market when you're working, but when you're retired, you don't have the opportunity to go back and make up for those losses. You're really locked in.
Right. And trying to get back to parity or where you were requires even more.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make up the performance of exactly the performance that you lost. You have to make up more than that to gain to it, which is something that when someone's actually doing the math and calculating the return or the hurdle rate that you need to get to in order to recoup those losses, it's not an equal percentage of how much you went down, that how much you have to gain in order to get there. So what did you discover? Because I think that right now in times of coronavirus, I'm sure that there are some 401ks, depending on how they were invested, are the 201k, and it brings us back to that recession period. So what were some of the discoveries from Phil's research that you can now bring into the future that you took with you?
Yeah, so one of the keys to managing, client behavior, what they call client behavioral management, is basically just making the client feel safe through those market fluctuations, is the fact that they're not taking their income from those accounts, that they're taking their income from another account and they won't have to draw from those accounts that are in the market until 10, 15, 20 years from now. So that hence the term time segmentation. But there was actually another impetus to my getting involved with this. And during that whole period, my dad started to become ill. So first he was having physical issues, neuropathy and, unsteadiness on his feet. And my parents had at the time a rather large property and home up in Massachusetts. And my dad, who was an engineer his whole life and, a do-it-yourselfer, loved to do things around the yard. He could build anything, he could fix anything. And here he was like climbing trees with a chainsaw, chopping down branches and up on the roof, to clean the gutters and stuff. Yeah. And my mom was just like frantic because he couldn't feel his feet. So it really was a very, very unsafe situation. So she finally talked him into selling the house and moving to a 55 and over community right down the street from me in Connecticut, which was great. But over the next few years, he continued to decline and he started to develop dementia as well. And my mom, they had been married since she was 19.
Wow.
They knew each other in kindergarten. They were childhood sweethearts. My dad went off to the war, came back, a long love story there. And so she was just devoted to him, but her life was like consumed 1,000% with doctor's visits, trips to the emergency room at all hours of the day and night, and followed by stays in rehab. It was really a very stressful time. So, in the course of helping them and watching this happen, this was a real eye-opener for me. When you think of retirement, you kind of picture that happy couple walking on the beach.
Yeah, the ones that are always on the website and in social media.
Yeah, exactly. And they're always beautiful, right?
Oh, they are always so beautiful. Picturesque.
But, what it really drove home for me is that may be part of retirement, but what I was experiencing with my parents is the other part of retirement. And this is reality for a lot of people as they age. And, one of the things being in financial services, I saw that they were very fortunate that they didn't have to worry about their finances, not because they were rich, but because they both had pensions. And my mom actually had full medical benefits from her former employer. She used to work for a utility.
That's incredible.
It is. And I don't know what they would have done, honestly, Tina, if they had to rely on their savings, because number one, the market was way down. So if they had to draw out at that point of their savings, that would have been really detrimental. But then they had all of these really high medical costs. So I started to do research on retirement and realized, first of all, there wasn't a whole lot of research out there, at least in financial services. People have been very, very focused on accumulating money.
Yeah, that's
401k, right?
Yeah, that's the nomenclature, right?
Yeah, exactly. That quarterly return, right? But not so much on the distribution phase where you need to take that money, that savings, and turn it into a paycheck. And what I could find, especially about the state of retirement for our generation, the baby boomers, painted a pretty bleak picture. First of all, we don't have those pensions to rely on like my folks did. And I mean, medical insurance from your former employer is unheard of now. We're the 401k generation, right? So we not only had to save for our retirement on our own, our company wasn't going to do it, but we have to worry about the rising costs of healthcare and all of those medical expenses and health insurance premiums. Plus, on top of that, and this is good news, bad news, we're living much longer.
Yes, it's so funny that you just said that, Sheryl, because that's exactly where my mind was going. And I see it with my own family. My mother's the oldest of 9 children, and knock on wood, everyone is alive.
Yeah.
And my mother's close to 80. Sorry, Mom. I know you're listening right now. I love you.
Well, my mom,
She looks great. She's in fantastic health. But what you just said is like, we are living longer, and there's more and more things that we have to deal with as we age. From a cognitive point of view, like you were talking about your dad, and I'm so sorry to hear that neuropathy is a real thing. You have to stop driving. You're completely dependent on another person.
Yeah, and oftentimes it leads to, amputation and, total disability. So it's, a lot of good from living longer, but then you're increasing your risks of, being sick and having to have long-term care and assisted living and things like that. Around that time, 2014, when my dad died, Phil approached me and asked me if I'd be interested in developing a technology based on this time-segmented distribution strategy. So I said I was the chief operating officer at the asset management firm, and he was heading up a large multi-state, advisory business. And I said, Phil, if we're going to put our extra time, and that's an air quote,
that, the air quote, extra time.
If we're going to do this on our spare time, we're going to put out something that's really, really special, not just for the advisor side of the business, but for the end consumer side of the business. So we took 3 months and we just surveyed people, and we knew things, from having worked in the industry, of what was lacking, where the gaps were. Mm-hmm. But then we filled in a lot of other gaps. And then we decided to move forward. We hired a developer and we started to build the system.
You make it sound so simplistic. I love it that you had this brainchild of an idea to create a SaaS product around the time segmentation, distribution, retirement planning. And now that you've just created a SaaS product, where do you go with that? How long does that take from idea, from conception to actually execution to having a real product? How long did that take?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we got together in 2014, and because of my project management background and I was a software developer, I understand how technology is developed and how the process should be. So we took about a year to put together all the requirements and make sure that everything was documented, and we started to build it and test it and everything. And then we came out with a beta version. And honestly, we weren't thinking about having a separate company at that time. We were actually giving the technology away to advisors who were using the asset management firm.
Right.
And then the DOL rule came along. So that's the fiduciary rule that the Department of Labor was going to put into practice, which got scrapped when President Trump came into office. But that rule was actually a great rule, because basically it said, if you're a financial advisor, you have a fiduciary duty to do what's right for your client, not to sell them a product, but to do what's right.
And with that DOL rule that, like you said, that didn't get passed, one of the things that was so important about that legislation was the fact that it applied to brokers as well, and advisors who are charging a commission based on the investments that they recommend to clients, which now they had to behold themselves to a standard that registered investment advisors were already married to.
Exactly. And one of the most important things there is that if you're selling a product to somebody, is it appropriate? And is it in their best interest? But then also, do they understand how that product works and how that product is being paid for? So that's like the difference a lot between the commission business and fee-based business. Is fee-based is, the fees you're paying your financial advisor, that's all disclosed. But sometimes when you buy a product, it doesn't it's not very clear about how that person who's selling you that product is getting paid. I mean, when the rule came out, we wanted to see, hey, we've got this strategy, we've got this technology. Why don't we engage an ERISA attorney, so that's a specialist in retirement, to look at our program and judge it against the fiduciary standards of the DOL rule. Mm-hmm. So we hired a top ERISA attorney out in California who consults to broker-dealers and RIAs and custodians. And we spent about 2 months with him going through the software and the program. And then he wrote a report for us that said, your software is incredibly compliant and really kind of sets the standard for how technology should be in relation to fiduciary services. And the only thing here is that you probably have a conflict of interest between the asset manager and the fact that you're giving this technology away for free. And we had come to the point where, from a business perspective, we knew that if we broke the technology off from the asset manager, we became a standalone financial technology firm. Number one, there would be no conflict of interest. Advisors could use any products they wanted to implement these retirement income plans for their clients, and we could charge money for it. So software as a service basically means that you charge a subscription fee and you pay either an annual fee or a monthly fee to have access to that platform, just like other software.
And if I could kind of bring this all full circle, I like what you said just now about the software as a service, product as a subscription. A lot of women, you can relate to QuickBooks, right? A lot of you are business owners right now. And QuickBooks is an example of a software as a service. Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing from you, Sheryl, is the fact that, so you created this product, and originally you had it in a TAMP environment, which is a turnkey asset management platform that advisors sometimes say to make an intentional decision not to deal so much with the investments and to rely on a software product or a technology that brings all of these things together and puts all of these investments in like this model type environment. And under the rule, now that you have it as its own standalone product, an advisor can plug in whatever investments that she or he wants to make a part of it, and that you'll do the analysis. So what is the important thing for women? And my mom and I have had a little bit of a discussion. How is a woman to know that the advisor that they're considering is either a fee-based advisor or is charging them on a commission product?
Yeah, and I don't want to give the impression that commission products are bad, because they're not. In fact, a lot of the advisors that we work with are called what is known as dual registered advisors. So they're registered with the SEC as well as FINRA. And the FINRA registration allows them to sell commission products like mutual funds and some, they get insurance products. The SEC allows them to sell fee-based products. Now, when you go to do your due diligence on an advisor, go to their website and look down under the disclosures at the bottom of the homepage. There should be a lot of disclosures there, and you can link to their reports or their entities on these regulation sites. So you can click on what's called broker check, and it will bring you to a site where you can put that advisor's name into the site, and you can see all the registrations they have. You can see where they've worked before, and if there are any disclosures in their history. So those are the big red dots that show up.
Yeah, those are the big red flags, ladies. Disclosures.
Yeah, the disclosures. So, sometimes it might have been something that was beyond their control, where they just had a client sue them and it was thrown out, so you can see that the regulator said that they denied the customer's claim. But, it's always important to look at that. I mean, now we have websites on doctors, so you can go out and see, ratings on doctors and who they're associated with, their hospitals, and how long they've been in practice and where they studied. So do research like that. And, also look at their website and see what services do they offer. So some advisors are sort of generalists, but what we like to do is train advisors specifically in retirement income so that they are specialists, because there are so many pieces in retirement that are different from accumulation. There's Medicare, there's long-term care, there's worrying about, the liquidation order of your accounts as you generate income from them. There's estate planning. There's home planning. Do you stay in your house, or do you sell it and move to another property? If so, are you moving to another state like you did, Tina?
Right.
There's so many considerations in retirement that you don't even think about.
Yeah, when you enlightened me, what you just said, Sheryl, was really important, and that there is a specific doctrine in retirement planning, and there are certain certifications that advisors had that I learned about when I came to this industry, the RICP being one of them.
Yep.
Right.
So that's a retirement income certified professional. And that's given by the American College. That's specifically training and certification in retirement related topics. Another one that's very good to look for is the CFP, the Certified Financial Planner designation. And there are others, but if you're looking for retirement income services, those are the folks you want to go to, because they're planners and they know all of the ins and outs of retirement.
And how do these retirement specialists use your SaaS product, which is IncomeConductor, as a vehicle to deliver advice?
Yeah, so there's a process. I mean, just like in any process, first you create a plan, and then you implement the plan, and then you track and manage the plan. So what our platform does is all of that. So it allows the advisor working with you, the client, to create a very customized plan, because everybody's retirement is different. You may have been a salesperson out on the road, in and out of airports your whole career, and now all you want to do is stay at home and grow a garden, right? Whereas that person who was stuck behind a desk their whole life at the DMV or something,
yes,
they just want to go out and travel the world. So no two retirements are the same, nor should they be. You should be able to pursue your own personal dreams. So it allows you to create a very personalized plan and to interact with the advisor. So you're going to work with the advisor to create that plan. And it's a lot of fun, because once you create a plan, you can test out different things like, well, what if I waited another year before I retired? Or what if we decided we wanted to travel more in those first 5 years? And the software shows you the impact immediately when you make those assumption changes. So it's kind of fun. It's been a lot of fun for our advisors and their clients during COVID, when people are meeting over Zoom and other webinar services, right? Because it's almost like playing a game,
Sure. And a lot of, I want to say that one of the big things that have happened right now as a result of the pandemic is that, boy, retirement planning or someone's retirement plan just got punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
And I was just actually speaking with somebody on Facebook Messenger today, and she told me her husband's an accountant and he's laid off now since June, and they're having a real hard problem. Well, their retirement plan just went awry. So what the projections that they sat down with their advisor about no longer apply. So you mentioned a really important thing, and be able to test different scenarios out with your advisor. What about if someone listening wants to work with an advisor that has access to your product, is there a way for them to get either a list or to understand or to find these people, specifically even ones that aren't working with a financial advisor right now?
Yeah, absolutely. They can contact me directly on our website, which is IncomeConductor.com. There is a contact page. So just fill out the form and there's a little message area and just say, I'm interested in learning more and maybe even talking to an advisor in my area. So we have advisors using the software across the US, Canada, and Australia.
Wow.
And nowadays, a lot of people meet virtually. So it really doesn't even have to be somebody, in your hometown. It can be somebody in the same state or even across the country, if you're okay with that. But we will introduce you to some of our advisors and you can, interview them. You just like you would anybody else who you're going to work with and you want to have a professional relationship with, you should be going in and interviewing them. You mentioned that a lot of people are in trouble right now financially with COVID. With our system tracks how your investments are doing, and then it will send out automated alerts to the advisor, basically saying, hey, the market's been going really well, and your client doesn't need to be in the market anymore. You can take them out of the market right now and lock in their income for the next 5 years. So a lot of our advisors got those alerts last year.
That's incredible.
And they moved their clients' money out of the market. So their clients are looking at guaranteed income for the next, 5-6 years, when they can ride out this market volatility and downturn, and they don't have to worry at all. So you can imagine there are a lot of very happy customers out there of our advisors who, got those alerts and protected that income.
That's great. Thank you for that, Sheryl. And like she just alluded to, we'll make sure that we have all of Sheryl's contact information in the show notes. Being that you've been in retirement planning, you have such a passion for it, you understand it through the lens of being a financial professional, but also too as a mother, as a wife, as a daughter, which I love. And there's this proverbial 4% rule that exactly that I thought that we would talk about, because how much do we think that we need for retirement, and has retirement planning philosophy changed? And if it has changed, what do we need to know? It is October 16, 2020. And I want to channel the wisdom of Sheryl O'Connor and bring it here in the suite for all the people listening, myself included.
So this might shock a lot of people out there, but the financial services industry has been using this 4% rule, this rule of thumb, for decades. And a lot of advisors don't even know, they can't even tell you where it came from. So it's basically a way of approaching distribution where you're going to be taking what's called systematic withdrawal. So that means basically you're going to be taking money out of your savings every month or every quarter or once a year. So it's systematized, right? So that's your paycheck. Now, systematic withdrawal is usually done by determining an individual's risk tolerance and then putting them into some kind of a model portfolio. So, it could be like 60% equity and 40% bonds. And then running Monte Carlo simulations on the viability of different withdrawal rates. So that 4% rule came from a study that was done by a financial advisor. His name was William Bengen, Bengen. And you can Google that. It's pretty interesting. He did this analysis and published an article in the Journal of Financial Planning back in October 1994.
That's a
So
while ago.
that's a while ago.
Worlds have changed a lot since then, Sheryl.
And that's not the worst.
Oh,
So what he did was he looked at the way the market performed between 1926 and 1976. And he looked at those, what's called rolling returns. And he said, based on the market performance over this period of time, you wouldn't run out of money if every year you withdrew 4% of your savings. And actually, he said it was 4.15.
Mm-hmm.
So that became this rule of thumb that everybody went by. Now, obviously, markets change, but more importantly, people change. And we've talked already about the fact that maybe that 4% rule was fine for my parents who didn't have to rely on their savings to generate income. But this is a whole different story right now. And the big there are two problems with systematic withdrawal. Number one, it gives you a probability of success, right? It doesn't give you a written plan like IncomeConductor does, like time segmentation does. It gives you a probability. So after taking in all your information, the advisor puts it into a tool and it spits out this long 50-page report full of all financial jargon that you don't understand, nor should you. And then
you would be able to understand it, Sheryl, that's for sure.
At the last page of this report, it says, congratulations, you have a 78% probability of success. Now, what that means is you have a 22% probability of going completely broke. Now, if you got on a plane and the pilot got over the loudspeaker and said, welcome aboard, buckle your safety belts. We have a 78% probability of reaching our destination today. You would probably get off that plane.
Absolutely.
So unfortunately, financial advisors have stuck with this kind of probability-based strategy, even though clients hate it. But the tools they use support it. So what we're bringing to the table is a strategy that gives you a written plan that can be tracked and managed and is customized to you, not based on probabilities, but based on actual dollar amount. So if you don't have to meet what you'd like to have for income, the software will tell you, hey, you're going to run out of money in year 25, and this is how much short you are. It doesn't say you have a 75% probability of success.
Right. It's giving you the actual dollar amount.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's what you need to make decisions.
Yeah, because look, your parents' generation was the generation had the pension. Your mother had the medical coverage. And what's happened is that our society, the complexion of work is changing. We're a digital universe here. So many industries have changed, even as a result of the pandemic, that what used to apply the same, the criteria are totally different. The situation, environmental factors are completely different. So we need to have something that can actually tell us in dollars and cents what we personally need to do based on our own circumstances. So you and I have also had a fascinating discussion around Medicare and the fact that it can even be different from state to state, and the needs for women to understand what that is and even speak with a professional who understands the logistics for that particular state, which things are varying from one thing to another. I thought even maybe that you can just say a few words on that to inspire the women listening.
Yeah, so the difference between just an investment manager or even a financial advisor and a financial planner is that the planner is going to basically take into consideration all the things that affect your life and your finances. So think about your life. Is there any part of your life that's not affected by your financial situation? Where you live, how you live, your health, your age, your family situation, your leisure activities, your goals and dreams. there are so many facets of, especially in the modern world, that are impacted by your finances. So holistic planning, and especially taking into consideration that somebody is a retirement income specialist, is really critical to the success of any good financial plan. So that's another thing to talk to about with a potential advisor that you're thinking of hiring. What is your specialty? Do you understand, Medicare? Do you understand estate planning? Do you understand how my savings should be used in retirement? Will you give me an actual plan versus a probability? Will you be there to hold my hand? And one of the things we tell our advisors is be the quarterback. As people age, they don't want to deal with 20 different specialists. Be the person that's quarterbacking the CPA, that's quarterbacking the attorney, that's even quarterbacking, the insurance companies or the medical companies or whatever, and is they have your back because they understand all of these things you have to deal with. And oftentimes, they're also there to be the objective person when family members come to you and say, hey, mom and dad, can we borrow some money to, buy a vacation home? And it's like, you want your kids to be happy, but, you go to your financial planner and they say, you can't afford to do this. You can't put your own financial security at jeopardy to help your kids. And then they're the ones that step in and deliver the bad news to the kids.
Right.
So, I think it's really important.
Hey, listeners, you can get a copy of the show notes from today's episode with Sheryl O'Connor. Just text the word in the suite, all one word, INTHESUITE to 55444, and you'll receive them right in your inbox. Thank you so, so much. Let's talk about your co-founder, Tom O'Connor, who's your son, and how that transpired. Sounds like an unbelievable opportunity to be able to work with your kids. I now have my daughter here, Rachel Powell, in the suite. A big shout out. I love working with my kids.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. There are some challenges that you have to get past, but it's funny because, my son he went to Northeastern. And he graduated with a computer animation and finance degree in 2009, which was not a good time to go out and find a job.
Right.
So his lease was up in Boston in his apartment in August. We said, why don't you move home, continue looking for a job? And we were growing really quickly through 2008 because, we were sort of more of a passive investment manager versus active. So everybody was going towards passive and we needed help. So we said, you know what? You need some money in the meantime. Instead of delivering pizzas, why don't you come in and, help us out in the office? And he's an extremely smart, talented kid, young man, I should say, and really good with technology. So he came in and he started to automate things within our office, and he started to catch on and really love the financial services industry. I think he got his Series 65, and he started to run, our GIPS compliant program and do all of our data processing and everything. And he came full time and eventually ended up as our chief technology officer. So when Phil and I started to develop IncomeConductor, we kind of tapped into him a few times, and he got really involved in the requirements work and things like that. And then when we split the company off in 2017 from the asset manager, he came to me and he said, what you guys are doing is a whole lot more fun than what I'm doing now. So he said, I want to go with you guys. So I said, you're going to be okay working with your mom? And he said, absolutely. It was kind of funny because before that, when we had been in meetings at the asset management firm, he would refer to me as Sheryl. And the first time he called me Sheryl in a meeting, it was a little weird, I got to tell you.
No, I had the same thing with Rachel, and we established that ground rule. I said, okay, it's Tina. So even in email, she'll
I know.
I just think that our kids are about the same age too, and
Yeah.
millennials were getting a bad rap for a while. And I have to say, we've got a whole team of millennials here, and I couldn't be more thrilled and more excited to welcome their technology brain and the way that they see things. I think it's so invigorating, and it's really been used to inform our strategy as well. And you yourself, Sheryl, so you have this blend of both technology and financial services. And years ago, when you went to college, it was, what's your major? And usually your minor was somewhat related to your major. And now what I like is, well, first of all, education is being completely disrupted. Who knows where it will be in the next year, 2 years, 5 years. I'm sure even what we're looking at right now is going to be modeled differently in the future. But both you yourself and your son's an example of this is combining two areas, him, the computer science and animation, and then with the financial services. And you too, you have a financial services and both the technology. So what would you say for women? You think that both of those skills are necessary today. What's your feeling on that?
Yeah, again, it depends on what you want to do. But if you want to go into this area, I mean, technology used to be a back office tool, but now it just pervades everything. I mean, just like everywhere in life. The nice part about, kids is that they just feel so comfortable around technology. And not just technology, but the rapid change of technology. So they can adapt very, very quickly to, new ways of doing things and going from platform to platform. So honestly, I think if I was to give somebody advice, I don't think it's as important to, go after this very strict major to be really successful in business. I think one of the most important things is communication. If you can write and if you can speak well, and that comes from reading and studying literature. A lot of kids, not a lot, but I've run into younger people like at large companies where they don't know how to write an email professionally. They can't speak to you in understandable terms because they're so used to just texting somebody. Communication skills are extremely important. You can go through, technology training and you can pick it up very easily. I actually didn't study technology in college. I went through a 2-month training program at an insurance company and became a software developer. But the leadership skills that you'll need to succeed in business are not those technical skills that you can easily train yourself on. It's the communication skills and the leadership skills that are going to come through, reading and studying and more of the liberal arts type of classes, honestly. My daughter is a PhD in engineering. And when her high school interviewed her about what the most important thing she learned there was, she had taken advanced math and science classes. And she said, oh, by far it was the writing course. Because we had teachers that would edit and edit and edit and edit, and they taught me how to write and communicate. And she said, honestly, that's all that I do right now. She runs a lab at Penn State. She writes voluminously, articles and books and things. And she said, that is the most valuable thing. So really communication and reading and knowing how to present yourself are really important. You can learn the other things along the way.
Gosh, and you did such an amazing job with your kids. I just want to say that.
Thank you.
Was there anything growing up, because we do have parents that are listening to the broadcast now, any book or any class or anything that you felt that was a really defining moment as you raised your children that we can pass on to any of the parents listening as it relates to communication, being able to write long form, expressing yourselves? For me, it was, I joined Toastmasters years and years ago.
Yeah.
And
that's great.
every Monday we spent 2 hours And we had a leadership manual and a competent communications manual that you had to design talks around different goals, whether or not that you were trying to inspire or educate or inform using different materials and stats. And for me, anyone listening, I think that's a fabulous thing. And a lot of college students right now, there are Toastmasters chapters and it being everything online. It's super easy now. But anything that you could recommend as a parent that you can pass along to others listening that you felt like really resonated with your kids?
Well, I'm definitely, I'm not the perfect parent by any means.
None of us are.
But I think one thing that our kids have always said that they loved about growing up, and I know it's harder now, especially with COVID, but they spent almost all day outside. They were free-range children. They didn't watch TV very much. They didn't have video games. They would go outside and it was just imagination. They would build forts and, pretend they were in different stories. And we did a lot of reading together as a family. So I think their imaginations, number one, they had great imaginations and curiosity about the world and love of nature. They're both campers and hikers and hikers, and they still love to be outside. But I think, it also kind of inspired them to be lifelong learners. So they are interested in a ton of different subjects. And, the older I get, the more I see how everything relates to each other. I don't know if you find that, Tina, but I learn lessons from books I read about trees or, brain science or something that I can apply to my own daily life and make my business more successful that way. So I think, just open your mind up and be a lifelong learner. Shut the TV off, get outside.
Yeah, that's such great advice.
There's a great book called The 3-Day Effect. And it's basically they took kind of stressed out people and then they put them out in nature for 3 days. And then they measured, them mentally, emotionally, everything. It was better than any drug in the world. Mm-hmm. If you can just unplug and get out there and get back in touch with yourself, that's the best medicine.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, what is the best way to get in touch with you? We're going to, again, have links in the show notes.
So I'm on LinkedIn. If you look up, just do a search on IncomeConductor and then look at the people, or Sheryl O'Connor with an S, you'll find me. But also, again, IncomeConductor.com. That's the best way. Just fill out a contact form and we'll get in touch with you and, let us know what questions you have too. We love talking to people.
And you're willing to take some inquiries from both financial advisors who might want to use your product as well, and consumers, women and men who are listening right now. I just want to make that distinction here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, we do have a focus group where we're providing our software free of charge to retirees and pre-retirees just to kind of get their feedback on what the software is like, because it really is very easy to use. So if you'd like to be part of our focus group, we'd love to hear from you as well.
Very, very cool. And we have a last question that we ask in the suite. And primarily this is because we want more women in the suite. We want more Sheryl O'Connors. For some women, getting to that point requires either a certain discipline, a mantra, a physical object, a form of practice that they use to strengthen their mind and their resilience to find a way, to find a path, drive a path directly to the C-suite. What can you share with other women who are listening right now to inspire them to find their own way in the suite?
Well, I think one of my main guiding principles, in every job I had was to basically the golden rule. So try to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And that just doesn't have an altruistic meaning. It's important if you're creating and marketing a product to really put yourself in the consumer's shoes. It's important when you're managing people to really put yourself in your employees' shoes. And then also, looking up the ladder, say, what is it like? This is what I aspire to within this firm. What is it like to be in that person's shoes? So, getting a mentor in a company is very important because they can kind of help you and decide and really see what is above you, but you can always see what's around you. So, try to find something that you feel passionate about and then put yourself in the other person's position, and you'll figure out a whole lot of creative things to do.
Sheryl O'Connor, that is amazing advice. Thank you so much for being here in the suite. We're truly appreciative of your time, your talents, and your philosophy. All your expertise is very inspiring to me. So thank you for the work that you're doing in the field to help to improve the outcomes for other people. And I really enjoyed our time today in the suite. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tina.
You're listening to In the Suite, a podcast that shares amazing stories of women in business in the financial services and the wealth management industry. Our producers are Tina Powell and Kevin Hirshorn. Our editor at large is Kevin Hirshorn. Our content writers are Carmen Varner and Tina Powell. And our research and technical assistant is Rachel Powell. Want to get show notes from today's episode? Just text the word In the Suite, INTHESUITE, all one word, to 55444, and you'll receive them right in your inbox. In the Suite is sponsored by C-Suite Social Media, a digital marketing and social media agency for C-Suite leaders and companies in finance and technology. You can visit csuitesocialmedia.com to learn more. And thank you so much for listening and subscribing to In the Suite podcast. We are so grateful to you. We've got listeners in 402 cities and 28 countries. Wow. This podcast was inspired by you ladies. Thank you so much. Please let us know how you enjoyed this episode with Sheryl O'Connor and share your thoughts on LinkedIn and Twitter using the hashtag InTheSuite. I would love it, and it would mean so much if you left us a 5-star review on Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever you listen to this amazing episode with Sheryl O'Connor. You can connect with her on LinkedIn and on Twitter at IncomeConductor, and check out her website at IncomeConductor.com. And always, if you would like to share the name of a rock star woman in financial services we should interview in 2021, please send it to me at tina@csuitesocialmedia.com. I promise I'll take a look at it. Again, thank you so much for listening and subscribing to In the Suite.